4 people, including a 16-year-old girl, were killed in the latest Russian missile strike on Odessa.
A Japanese group of atomic bomb survivors won the 2024 Nobel Peace Prize for their activism against nuclear weapons.
Four people, including a 16-year-old girl, were killed in the latest Russian missile strike on Odessa. Local officials say a total of 14 people have been killed and around 24 wounded as Russia launched 4 missile and drone strikes on the southern Ukrainian region this past week. The attacks seem to be an attempt to disrupt Ukraine's grain export, one of the country's key income sources. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is currently promoting his victory plan across Europe. Russia's strikes coincide with Zelensky's recent push for continued military and financial support from Ukraine's Western allies. Ukraine's army has come under increased pressure after Russian forces made progress and claimed more territory in the Donetsk region. Vuhledar was one of the latest settlements that fell to the Russians as Ukrainian forces were pushed out after more than 2 years of battle. A secondary attack by Israeli forces on the UNIFIL headquarters in Lebanon injured an additional 2 peacekeepers, one of who is in critical condition. It follows Thursday's attack that injured 2 other blue helmets. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell demands full accountability from Israel and says the attack means another line has been dangerously crossed in Lebanon. UN peacekeeping chief Jean-Pierre Lacroix also said clashes between Hezbollah and Israel in the south of Lebanon has put UN peacekeepers at serious risk.
UNIFIL operational activities have virtually come to a halt since 23rd of September. Peacekeepers have been confined to their bases with significant periods of time in shelter. This severe impediment to the mission's freedom of movement within the area of operation has limited the mission's monitoring and reporting ability.
UNIFIL says its headquarters and surrounding positions have repeatedly been hit as Israel and Hezbollah continue to clash along the Blue Line. They add that the deliberate targeting of UN peacekeepers is a violation of humanitarian law and remind the IDF and all actors to commit to their obligations to ensure the safety and security of UN personnel and property.
For the past year, the Middle East has been at the mercy of a deadly war between Israel and Hamas that has now spread to Lebanon. Within this context, the Republic of Cyprus is hosting Med9, the summit of the 9 Mediterranean states members of the European Union. At the top of the agenda is ending the war, providing humanitarian aid, but also the possibility of large numbers of migrants trying to reach Europe. Now, the 9 leaders are trying to formulate a common position that will contribute to the end of hostilities. Furthermore, they hope that this common position will become the basis of the discussion that will be held next week at the European Council. Nicosia estimates that so far the 27 member states have not managed to express themselves unanimously and thus to intervene decisively in the ongoing developments. The participation of the President of the Commission shows that Brussels is following the concerns and the efforts of the 9 leaders. By inviting the King of Jordan, the President of Cyprus sends the message that Europe is discussing about the future of the Middle East with the participation of a country that has not been involved in the conflict and remains a beacon of stability in the region. As for migration, 5 of the 9 states are first reception countries. Greece and Cyprus are worried about a possible new migration wave. Nicosia has repeatedly stated that it cannot host more refugees and migrants and requests the continued support of the European Union. Apostolos Staikos at Med9 for Euronews, Paphos.
The 2024 Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Nihon Hidankyo, a Japanese group of survivors of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for its activism against nuclear weapons. While awarding this year's prize, the chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee said the decision was made as the taboo against the use of using nuclear weapons is under pressure.
This grassroots movement of atomic bomb survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, also known as Hibakusha, is receiving the Peace Prize for its efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons, and for demonstrating through witness testimony that nuclear weapons must never be used again.
It was an emotional win for the Atomic Bomb Survivors Organization, which was founded in 1956 by people affected by the two US atomic bomb strikes during World War II. The prize was awarded against a backdrop of devastating conflicts raging in the world, notably in the Middle East and Ukraine.
He is the new kid on the block at the Council of the European Union. Frenchman Bruno Retailleau attended his first meeting of interior ministers on Thursday. Before taking his first steps on the European stage, the French representative immediately set his political stance. He wants a firmer approach to migration policy.
Bruno Retailleau est un gage donné à la droite française et à l'extrême droite en termes de discours, puisque Bruno Retailleau est assez dur sur les questions migratoires.
Bruno Retailleau is calling for the European Asylum and Migration Pact to be implemented as quickly as possible, or even ahead of schedule. He also wants to review the Return Directive, the guiding principle of which is to return all illegal immigrants to their country of origin or transit.
La directive retour a été élaborée, elle a été à l'époque adoptée en 2008, mais elle a été élaborée plusieurs années avant dans un monde radicalement différent. Elle est mal nommée parce qu'en réalité la directive de retour empêche beaucoup de retours.
Also, the new French Interior Minister does not rule out any a priori solution to the transfer of migrants to centres outside the European Union along the lines of the agreement between Italy and Albania. This radical stance is echoed across Europe, where the far right is on the rise. But his proactive stance may not actually be directed at the member states.
Je pense qu'il a une vision surtout nationale. C'est aussi quelqu'un qui n'est pas extrêmement connu sur la scène politique nationale. Il l'était au sein du Sénat, c'était le chef du groupe de la droite au Sénat, mais il doit se tailler une stature politique nationale, il doit affirmer son identité politique. Donc je pense qu'on est sur un discours volontariste pour marquer son territoire politique au sein de la coalition et vis-à-vis de l'Assemblée nationale.
Bruno Retailleau also sparked controversy over the rule of law. He believes that as a principle it is neither intangible nor sacred, a comment quickly reframed by the French Prime Minister. However, remarks like these seem to have won over the Hungarian leader Viktor Orban, who told the press at the European Parliament that he had a lot of respect for the French minister.
The French government unveiled its draft budget plan for 2025 in Paris on Thursday, and it's quite a touchy subject considering that France's public deficit is expected to reach more than 6% of its GDP by the end of the year. That's higher than almost all other EU countries, and the government's goal is to slash 60 billion euros in 2025 alone. That's 2% of its GDP. It's quite an unprecedented amount, and to do this, the Minister of the Economy, Antoine Armand, announced an eye-watering 40 billion euros in public spending cuts that will cover pretty much all ministries. So it's quite an unpopular measure among his own government. And local territories will also be asked to cut more than 5 billion euros, which has caused quite an uproar among France's mayors. And the rest of the 20 billion euros will come through exceptional and temporary tax hikes that will concern the wealthiest incomes and also the highest highest earning corporations. And the budget plan will also face intense scrutiny from the EU Commission that formally warned France back in June of its excessive public spending. And although the government claimed it's open to debate, well, the current fragmented political landscape could push Prime Minister Michel Barnier to adopt the text without a vote using the controversial Article 49.3 of the French Constitution. Sofia Katsenkova reporting from Paris for Euronews.
Hundreds of students in Budapest have been taught how to protect themselves against online fraud at a Cyberfest event organised by the police. Secret Service officers showed young people how to be aware of the risks posed by hackers and some influencers.
23 iskola, 34 osztálya, közel 1000 diáknak van lehetősége mai nap részt venni a programjainkon, és hát az a célunk, hogy élményközpontú programokat kínáljunk, és nem titkolt célunk az az, hogy úgy szerezzenek ismeretet a hallgatók, diákok, hogy esetleg nem is tudják, hogy éppen ők tanulnak, és új ismereteket visznek haza.
In the National Cybersecurity Institute's area, one of the main lessons was that if you connect to public Wi-Fi networks, your data can easily be stolen with a device that anyone can legally buy.
Vannak olyan eszközök, amelyek egyszerűen tudnak megtévesztő hálózatokat kialakítani, és pont ezért ezek az eszközökkel minden olyan forgalom, ami azon átment, azok megfigyelhetőek, lehallgathatóak, ezért óvaintenék mindenkit, hogy ilyen ingyenes hálózatokhoz akár hozzácsatlakozzon.
Although the tasks were mostly playful, the dangers of cybercrime are very real and young people aren't the only targets.
A csalók 2 évvel ezelőtt 9 milliárd forintot, tavaly pedig már 23 milliárd forintot loptak el a magyar emberektől az interneten keresztül a Nemzeti Bank statisztikái szerint. Ez azt jelenti, hogy most már gyakorlatilag mindenki veszélyben van, és ezért jó, hogyha megtanulja, hogyan védekezhet az internetes csalások ellen. Magyar Ádám, Euronews, Budapest.